Sci-Hub.
So it's really quite rare now that retro-style radios come out of factories at all. And I think it's actually quite refreshing when they do, because I really like that kind of style, and I think that's really what drew me to the Groov-e Encore DAB radio that we have sitting here. So the Groov-e Encore itself actually does look really, really good, but upon closer inspection I don't think it really lives up to the kind of quality that Pure and Roberts have set for this kind of style. But you have to keep in mind the price when you're speaking about quality. Now the Groov-e Encore is currently retailing at $69.99, that's UK pounds, and it is available on the Groov-e website, where there'll be a link in the description for you. And I think that reflects on the quality of this over something like Pure or Roberts, which retail for a lot more. But as I said, from a distance, things really do look quite aesthetically pleasing, and it's only until you get quite up close and personal with the Encore that you start noticing those few imperfections that you probably wouldn't find on a more expensive radio. Now, I mean, for example, when I say you get up close and personal, it's things like the buttons that you start to notice that from afar they look quite metal-like, and it really gives off a decent quality. But when you get up close, you start to realise that they're plastic. And it's things like the logo on the front is a little bit bigger than I would have liked, and the knobs, again, are made from plastic rather than metal, which the more expensive radios will probably be made of. And just overall, it just up close, it just gives a really cheap aesthetic feel, and I think a saving grace to that cheap feel is actually the box itself has been made from wood. I would say it's probably more MDF, which is very much a cheap kind of wood, but I think that saves on manufacturing costs, and therefore that's why it's able to be delivered to the consumer at £69 as opposed to £200 like some Roberts or some Pure radios are. Or even the Goodman's Heritage 2, for example, which is currently retailing at £200, I think. This is very, very much that budget option, keeping the 1950s retro look, but not with that price tag that the other manufacturers have attached to their products. So the whole radio itself, as you can see, is very, very symmetrical. You've got two knobs on each side. The one on the left is to control the volume, and the one on the right is to control the functionality, so you can go into particular menus, or if you want to cycle through the particular radio stations that you can pick up in your area, then you can do that all with the right hand side knob. The buttons that span all the way across the front are for different functionalities, like the source, which is the input, presets 1 to 3, which there are actually 10 presets. If you go into the menu, you can set those, but the buttons on the front will give you preset 1, 2 and 3. And there's also an information button, so if you were listening to a DAB radio station, then you can get the information from the particular song that's playing or the particular DJ that's speaking. Also, power is on the front as well to turn it on and off, and then your alarm settings, which is a separate button. I think that symmetrical look is what gives it that 1950s/1960s kind of vibe. It looks very retro, it looks very vintage, and I actually think it looks quite smart as a radio, and depending on the colour of the wood, would actually match some furniture quite nicely in your home. Even though I don't think that this is going to be a living room radio, I think it's going to be more a bedside table or a kitchen radio while you're doing some chores or some relaxing in your room, for example. If you're just about to go to sleep and you want to listen to a bit of radio, that's what this kind of thing is for. So I don't think it's going to overtake the living room, but sitting on a bedside table or in the corner in the kitchen, I think it's going to look quite nice, and it gives off a really nice aesthetic feel. Now, there is a screen on the front, which is a very, very common kind of two-tiered digital display, which you have probably seen on a ton of radios if you've watched radio reviews, or even passing radios in your local electric retailer, or radios that you've owned in the past. It's very much a universal screen. Now, that screen on here is LCD rather than OLED or LED, so it is very, very bright. But there is a brightness adjustment that you can make on the actual radio itself. So if you're having this as a bedside radio, for example, you can lower the brightness if you're trying to get to sleep, if it's going to interrupt you. But the brightness isn't that bright that it would probably interrupt you, to be honest with you. I've had this in my bedroom, using it as an alarm clock, to be honest with you, and the brightness hasn't kept me awake. It hasn't really interrupted any kind of sleep, and I don't think there's any need to turn the brightness down, because when you do wake up from the alarm, you can see what time it is, you can see what radio station that's playing through your alarm, so I don't think there's really any need to turn that brightness down. So as I said earlier that you can listen to this while falling asleep, that is because... So as I said earlier, that if you're going to be using this to listen to while falling asleep, there is a sleep timer that you can set on here. And another nice feature is the fact that you can set the alarm to either play the last station that you listen to, a station of your choice, or even just a generic kind of buzzing sound. I found that the buzzer can be quite quiet, but I've usually used the DAB radio station that I've been listening to as my last station as my alarm, which once I set that to the maximum volume, it does raise in increments, so it's not going to blast extremely loud radio at you all at once. It does wake you up sort of incrementally, so it starts quiet and gets loud. So I think that with clock radios, especially clock radios, the functionality can be quite hard to get used to, and holding down specific buttons to access specific menus is really quite annoying and quite dated. But I think the actual Groov-e Encore radio has managed this really well, and setting an alarm or setting your presets, setting up the Bluetooth to hook it up to your mobile phone, it's all really quite simple, and it's all really clear instructions on the front of the screen as well. And I never once felt as if I had to turn to an instruction manual or just get annoyed at it and not set the alarm up, for example. Everything was done quite seamlessly, which I thought was really nice. And that was including searching for the DAB radio stations as well. When I first switched this on, it auto-tuned the DAB radio stations for me. It picked up all the stations that I could get in my location. That would vary from location to location. So where you are, you might get slightly different digital radio stations, but it does it automatically for you anyway. And then all you have to do from there is set your presets to your favourite radio stations if you want to set your presets. If you don't, then you can just use the turning knob to cycle through and then click it once in to tune to that particular station once you've found it. So I think the biggest downfall with the Groov-e Encore DAB radio is sound quality. Now I know that it has built-in Bluetooth, so you can play Spotify from your mobile phone, for example, but I don't think this particular product has really been made with sound quality in mind. If you're after better sound quality, then there are some wireless or some purely Bluetooth speakers out there that are under £100 that would probably be a lot better than this. But then you start losing things like the DAB radio functionality or the FM radio. At low and medium volumes, it's not that bad. I don't want to say it's terrible because there are worse speakers out here. There are actually two drivers in the front here, by the way, which fire out the sound, front firing speaker. It doesn't sound that bad, especially when you're on radio. It gives quite a nice warm tone to presenters' voices, and then gives radio a little bit more of a punchy bass than the average FM radio probably ever could. That might be due to being a digital signal. I don't really know. I don't know enough about the improved sound qualities of digital signals over FM signals, but if you were going to be putting this in a kitchen or even in a bedroom as a bedside table radio, then you're not going to be pumping really loud music out of it anyway. That's why I said it probably wouldn't go into a living room, because people have things like hi-fis in living rooms or sound bars or 5.1 cinema systems, which will be able to produce so much better quality audio than this ever could anyway. But for what it is, for the price, and the location that you're going to be probably putting this in your house, in a bedroom or a kitchen, an office maybe, if you're going to be listening to a little bit of music while you're working, the volumes that you're going to be listening to this really are going to be sort of a low to a medium anyway. So the sound quality for that wasn't that bad, and as I say, DAB radio is a lot better than sort of cheaper options or even FM radios that were sold in the past. The worst thing I found is with Bluetooth, actually. The signal between my phone and this actual unit was very, very distorted, and there was a lot of noise and a lot of cracks, and it really sounded as if my Bluetooth signal was being interrupted, but it wasn't, because I've tried my Bluetooth signal on various different speakers in the house, and I review speakers all the time, so I've tried my phone on many, many different speakers, and it was just this one that had this issue. Now, I'm not sure if it's not able to pick up a strong enough signal from my phone or what was going on there, but there was just a little bit of a hiss and a crack while listening to songs through Bluetooth, especially when they were pushed to louder volume levels. So as I said, as a roundup, I don't think that this is going to replace any kind of sound system that you've already got in your home. It'll probably be used as a secondary speaker or even bedroom, kitchen kind of space conscious speaker. It sounds alright when listening to the radio. Bluetooth wasn't very good at all, and I actually did like it. And the way it looks, yes, the sort of details are made from plastic, but if you're not going to be on top of the machine, then you're probably not really going to notice it anyway. And from afar across the room, it does look really good and does give off quite a nice 1950s kind of retro feel. So thank you very much for watching our review of the Groov-e Encore DAB radio. If you like the review, then do click that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our tech and gaming videos, and also let us know in the comments what you think of this particular product, or whether you would invest a higher amount of money in something from Pure, Roberts, or the Goodman's Heritage series, for example, which are now £200. Still very expensive, but very, very good products. As I say, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next review.